Prime time might meet dime time. The Oklahoma Sooners in the market for another transfer wide receiver. We're going to talk to you about it on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to every member of the Everyday Club. Thanks for being here with us every single day. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. I'm John Williams. Josh Helmer will not be with me on this episode, just taking the night off as we record generally the night before the episodes drop. He had a soccer match that he was calling play-by-play for, so just me, but have to get on this news that the Oklahoma Sooners hosted former Colorado wide receiver transfer Jordyn Tyson, a former three-star prospect in the 2022 recruiting cycle. An interesting name to follow the more you dig into him. Played his high school ball at Allen High School, a former teammate of 2024 quarterback commit Michael Hawkins. And the dude is a player. I mean, yes, only a three-star player coming out of high school, but it's hard to imagine how exactly he was just a three-star player when you look at, his production just in high school. In his senior season for Allen, he put up 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns on 80 catches. That's pretty salty. Like, that's really good production in some really good competition at the highest level of Texas high school football. Pretty stout. As a true freshman at Colorado, according to Colin Kennedy over at Sooners Illustrated, he missed a lot of the first part of the season because he was having some injury issues. But in the later part of the season, when he started to get more playing time, he played really well. He had 200-yard games, had a 92-yard game, and in a 3-game stretch, he had, well over 350 yards receiving, 13 catches, 2 touchdowns against Oregon State, Arizona State, and Oregon, averaged 26.5 yards per reception in those 3 games. So the dude's a legit deep threat. He can get open down the field and he can make plays after he gets the ball down the field. So it's a very intriguing option that the Oklahoma Sooners are kind of pursuing on this front. We've seen that they're not going to be really shy about trying to add a deep threat to replace Marvin Mims. That was a big part of their offense last year, and now that's gone. And the spring really didn't reveal a true wide receiver 2. They didn't really reveal a true deep threat. And so it does look like the Sooners aren't necessarily satisfied with the options that they have currently in-house. They went out and got Andrell Anthony from Michigan. They added Brennan Thompson from Texas and looked to be pursuing Jordyn Tyson out of Colorado. Now, you could, dig into why did Colorado let him go? What's the ordeal there? We'll save that here for just a minute. We'll talk through that here in a bit. But just the player, I mean, you go look at what he's done and as a true freshman on a team that wasn't good, like that Colorado team, not good. There's a reason that the coaching staff is gone from that previous regime and Deion's coming in cleaning house. They just weren't a good team. But Jordyn Tyson was one of the bright spots for 2022 Colorado Buffaloes team that just didn't play well. Again, that 3-game stretch was just remarkable. He wins, down the field. Had the longest touchdown receptions for Colorado last year, 2 58-yard receptions for the Buffaloes. So this is potentially a really, really intriguing option. Another name that you can throw into the wide receiver 2 competition opposite of Jalil Farouk. I mean, you're talking about a lot of guys that you like and are promising, but nobody that's really stepped up to kind of take the reins at wide receiver 2. We're talking about Andrell Anthony. We're talking about Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson, LV Bunkley Shelton, JJ Hester, Keon Brown and Jaquaze Petaway. They'll get there in the summertime, so they're not really factoring in on this just yet. this is another name and another guy with deep ball ability, deep speed that can win for you downfield. I like that they're not settling, even though they've got a lot of intriguing options and a lot of options that a lot of teams would be happy to have on their roster. They're seeing a guy that is a good football player and thinks that, and they think that they can be better with Jordyn Tyson on the field. Now, he's going to be hotly pursued by a lot of teams across the country, so it's no foregone conclusion that the Sooners will land him. However, given that Emmett Jones has those deep ties into North Texas, like we talked about on the live show on Monday night, I would not rule the Oklahoma Sooners out at all in this recruitment, because Emmett Jones has done some incredible work just in the 4 plus months that he's been with the Sooners. He's already had 5 commits, 2 out of the transfer portal, 3 out of the recruiting rankings, 2 of those for 2024 and 1 for 2025. So if there's a recruit on the market and Oklahoma wants to get him, I would put a greater than 50% chance, especially if they're from the North Texas area, that they're going to be able to land him. I don't know. I just feel that confidently in Emmett Jones and what he's been able to do. So intriguing option again for the Sooners hosting him. I think he would immediately kind of fall into that position battle, and given his ability to win deep and just the production, he's probably the best option you might have if the Sooners were able to land him. Again, he'd have to come in, compete, win a job, but displays a natural ability to win down the field. And that's an important cog. You got Jalil Farouk to work in the short to intermediate areas. You got Drake Stoops as well, to win out of the slot. Gavin Freeman as a slot player as well. But you don't really have a whole lot of answers after that. So even if something were to happen to Andrew Anthony, say he becomes your starter and he goes down with an injury, you don't really have a lot of options that you feel 100% confident in. There are guys that you want to develop and guys that you think could take the reins and be integral parts of your offense down the road, but they're just not there yet. Even guys like Andrew Anthony or Brennan Thompson or JJ Hester, LV Bunkley Shelton, Keon Brown, Nick Anderson, all these dudes that are on the wide receiver depth chart, not named Jalil Farouk, don't really have a whole lot of experience and a whole lot of production to their name that you can bank on moving you forward at the position. A guy like Jordyn Tyson, even though it's just 1 year and really it was just 3 games, he produced in those 3 games. I mean, again, 2 100-yard receiving days and a 92-yard receiving day in 3 consecutive weeks. 13 catches over those 3 weeks. Again, for the season, he averaged, just over 21 yards per reception. And then that 3-game stretch toward the end of the year against, Oregon State, Arizona State, and Oregon, he averaged 26.5 yards per catch. That's really good. You can't do that without being really good. I mean, you might, blow by a guy one time and have one big play, but that's not going to account for all of your 131 yards receiving on a day. You've got to still make plays. And he was also a really good, punt returner as well. I mean, had a fantastic game against Arizona State where he had 131 yards returning, punt return yards, 1 for a touchdown. Against Colorado, 2 kick returns for 47. Against Oregon State, 2 kick returns for 47 yards. He also completed a pass for 37 yards. So, again, a big option for the Sooners to add to their wide receiver crew or core. 6-foot guy, not going to be a big, strong dude, but he's going to win down the field. Coming up next, going to talk to y'all about why is all this happening? What is the deal with Deion Sanders? What's the deal with Jordyn Tyson leaving Colorado? And all of that after I talk to you all about Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar ever. If you haven't tried it, you're missing out. It tastes great and it's great for you. Anywhere from, just 130 to 170 calories, 13 to 17 grams of protein, 4 or 5 grams of sugar, low carb, low calorie, high protein, great macros for you and great flavors. 100% covered in chocolate. Flavors like peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, coconut brownie chunk, cookie dough chunk, and they've got Built Puffs, which are marshmallow textured Built Bar as well. A lot of protein, low calorie, low sugar. You're asking, how do they do it? I don't know how they do it, but go check it out at built.com. You won't be disappointed. They taste great. I love Built Bar. The Built granola bars are fantastic as well if you get a chance to get a hold of those. So go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off your next order over at built.com, or you can find them at Sam's or Walmart. So the deal with Deion Sanders and this whole, transfer portal thing, roster churn, whatever you want to call it, this to me just looks like a dude that wants to start over. He wants to get in there, get his guys, get this program off to the start that he wants, and he doesn't want anything left over from the previous regime. That's why you're seeing so many dudes enter the portal. I mean, they could be talented kids, just like a Jordyn Tyson, a talented player who's able to make plays for you, but he doesn't have a spot on your roster, Colorado. He's not a guy that is going to make sense for you. Now, there could be a variety of reasons in which Jordyn Tyson is transferring, but it does seem like, and only Deion Sanders knows this, only the kids know this, it does seem like Deion Sanders is just starting from scratch. It's like he, just dropped the nuke on the program, letting everything kind of burn off and starting over from the beginning. That's his prerogative. We'll find out here in a few years if this is going to work. I don't think 2023 is going to be a very good opportunity to judge this strategy for Prime, but maybe 25, 26, by that time we'll know, like, okay, is he going to be successful at the Power 5 level? Is this whole 100%? Now, no, it's not 100%. I'm speaking in hyperbole here, but is this near complete roster turnover? Is that going to be the new wave of college football? I doubt it. I don't think that anybody else is going to try and take this kind of a stance, just because some of it is, you got to have players. You got to have some players to play. And he's not going to be able to replace every single guy that he, not that transferred out through the transfer portal or the recruiting ranks. He will replace some, but it's going to be, it won't be a cohesive group of transfer portal acquisitions. At the same time, Colorado's been bad for a very long time. So I totally get where he's coming from if that's what he wants to do. If he wants to start from scratch and do it his way. I mean, the other way hadn't worked for Colorado, so why not give it a chance? But again, we're not going to really know how successful this is for a few years. But I mean, it's like that episode of The Wire where, Lieutenant Marimo goes in to the office and basically just tears down the major crimes unit, and one of the sergeants somewhere else talks about him and says he does not cast off talent lightly. He heaves it with great abandon. And that's what it seems like Deion Sanders is doing here too, is not only is he just letting talent go, but it's like he's just doing the Uncle Phil and just DJ Jazzy Jeffing it out the front door. And Colorado's suffering could be Oklahoma's gain, especially in the case of Jordyn Tyson. If it were to work out that he were to commit to the Oklahoma Sooners, again, potentially a really, really strong wide receiver option for the Sooners. He's going to be heavily coveted. A lot of teams are going to be coming after him because you can't find deep ball ability like he's got just anywhere. It takes either elite speed like a Marquise Brown has, or really, really good route running and ball skills, say like a CD Lamb or Marvin Mims, that is going to be able to allow you to be productive down the field, 20 plus yards down the field, and be consistently productive that way. It's really hard to do that. Those are high degree of difficulty options. It takes a good throw. It takes a good route. It takes space. It takes timing. It takes good hands. It takes a lot of different things to come together to be a good deep ball receiver. But it looks like Jordyn Tyson has that ability and has it in spades. So it's going to be a recruitment to watch. We're going to keep an eye on it here on Locked On Sooners. More predictions came through for David Stone. Texas A&M recruiting insiders flipping their predictions for Stone back to the Sooners. A lot of different things happening on recruiting right now. It seems like Oklahoma is continually trending in the right direction. We talked a lot about that on the live show on Monday night, so make sure you go back and check that out. If you're part of the Everyday Club, you've already seen it, but if you're not, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We've got that show back there for you. You can just scroll back on your podcast feed or on YouTube and find it. The last thing we're going to talk about, the Oklahoma Sooners in the top 25 in USA Today Sports and 247 Sports post-spring power rankings. Over at USA Today, the Oklahoma Sooners were the number 18 team. I got to pull it up here real fast. I didn't have it pulled up. Usually Josh talks a little bit, and so it gives me an opportunity to pull things up as he's talking. And here we are. The Sooners came in at, this is me vamping. It's been a while since I've done a solo show, so thank you so much for bearing with me. Number 18 in the USA Today Sports post-spring power rankings put out by Eric Smith and Paul Meyerberg. I mean, I think it's reasonable to not include Oklahoma in any top 25 or any power rankings to start the 2023 season, just because of that 6 and 7 season. I totally get, like, this is an improved roster. It's an improved team. You can't really base what Oklahoma is going to be on your projections or on your hopes. All we've seen out of Brent Venables' team right now is a 6 and 7 squad. Now we think they're going to be better, but I would understand an argument for leaving Oklahoma out of any top 25, whether it's the AP poll, the coaches poll, the power rankings, whatever, outlet you want to look at. I can understand leaving Oklahoma out of that. But at the same time, the flip side of that is Oklahoma being number 18 in these USA Today Sports power rankings. It does speak to the level of optimism surrounding the Sooners right now. And a lot of that comes from the additions that they've made on the defensive side of the football. The Dasan McCullough, Reggie Pearson, Jacob Lacey, Trace Ford, Rondo Bothroyd. I'm sure I'm missing Devon Sears. This is a team that improved. They brought in a lot of talent to add to their depth chart. A lot of those guys might start. I would not be surprised to see a Rondo Bothroyd, Jacob Lacey starting for this team. Reggie Pearson, we talked about it on the live show. He could end up starting for this team at safety. So you brought in some important and significant difference makers through the transfer portal on your defense. And I mean, there's a good chance that you're not quite done yet as you kind of wrap up your roster construction and through the transfer portal. There's going to be some options there for you to continue to improve your roster. But then also year 2 for a lot of these guys, whether it's an Ethan Downs or Danny Stutzman, Isaiah Coe, Jordan Kelly, a lot of those guys that came back from the 2022 squad, they're getting a second year in Brent Venables' system to get more familiar, get more comfortable. It's going to make them better. They're going to be able to play faster, play quicker, play with more confidence. And that as a whole will make the defense a whole lot better. Now, your new guys, they have a bit more of a transition period underway, but given that you've got more dudes in-house that are familiar with the system, it should help integrate those newer guys as opposed to last year when everybody was new, when everybody was trying to figure out what Brent Venables' system was and the cues and the checks and, different defensive calls and responsibilities, all of that, they have a much better familiarity with now. So that as they go into year 2 and they're integrating Rondo Bothroyd along the defensive line, the guys that have been here, they can go to him and tell him, like, hey, this is what we're looking for in this scheme. This is what the play call is. This is what the cue, the check is that we're looking for from the offensive line to know what, which gap you're going to fill, things like that. So a lot of it comes from, chemistry and continuity and having just a comfort level with the defense. The other issue, Brent Venables isn't a first-year coach now. He's gone through the gambit of what it means to be a first-year coach. He's made the mistakes. He had some good moments. He had some bad moments, whether it was time management or timeout usage or in-game adjustments. He's gone through all that now as the head coach, not just the defensive coordinator. So knowing what we know about Brent Venables, things that didn't go well, I'm sure he looked at those things and he looked into how do I improve upon that, because I'm not going to sit here and be the same guy that I was a year ago. I'm going to improve. I'm going to get better because that's what he's asking everybody else to do, right? He's asking everybody to get better. So Brent Venables is going to be better in his second year with the Sooners. That doesn't alleviate any of the questions that you have on your offense with the offensive line, with wide receiver 2, which we spent a whole lot of time talking about just a little bit ago. But this is where it comes down to for Oklahoma is they've got to be improved across the board. But the defense, especially, they're going to have to be much, much better than they were a year ago if they're going to take that step that everybody's kind of expecting them to take. 9 wins, 10 wins, contending for a college or the Big 12 championship game, or hey, maybe even a college football playoff berth. It's hard to say. There's going to be a lot more to follow, a lot more to track. We'll be back with Josh Helmer for our Thursday episode of the show. Again, make sure you're locked in and locked on with Locked On Sooners here every day. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We're free and available on every single platform. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can also hear him Monday through Friday from 9 to noon on 94.7 The Ref in Norman. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams, and the show is at Locked On Sooners. But until next time, for my buddy Josh Helmer, I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer Sooner.